Happy morning, dear friends. Here's yours, Dr. Rajanta. Welcome to Demystify with Ajay. And dear friends, we are in Generative AI series. Every generative AI project begins with one crucial ingredient, data. But here's the reality, data is scattered everywhere. You may find CSV files with user prompts, or JSON files with APIs containing model responses, Excel sheets with annotation, or even HTML pages on the web holding the raw text you need. Sometimes it's tucked away in databases like SQLite or comes as continuous streams of time-stamped logs. So the question here is, how do we bring all this diverse source together into one structured AI-ready dataset? That's where Pandas step in. And dear friends, in this session we explore, yes, of course, how to read and write files in CSV, Excel, JSON, XML, and even binary formats. Load and preview data directly inside Jupyter Notebook. Connect Pandas with databases for smooth data exchange. And of course, dear friends, we are going to handle time-based data from date times to time deltas. Process and clean textual data, splitting, concatenating, and searching within strings. Dear friends, think of Pandas as your data universal adapter. No matter where the data lives, spreadsheets, web pages, APIs, or logs, Pandas gives you the tools to access it, clean it, and prepare it for your GenAI workflows. And in the world of GenAI, that skill makes all the difference. Dear friends, in the previous sessions, the data we used was nothing more than simple numbers. And the labels of the columns and rows were the letters of the alphabets. In fact, in addition to being numerical values, data in reality can also be something more complex and less malleable. You will often have to deal with strings of characters, dates and times, or as we have seen in some case, wrong or missing values with NA, and that is not a number. Dear friends, in this session, we will discuss how to manage the most common format of efficient methods made available by the Pandas library. It will be possible to import the data into them and convert them into the data format. And of course, dear friends, Pandas can be a valuable tool for reading and writing data to files. So the library provides a large number of functions in this regard, often specified to each type of file format. Okay, now let's start with the most commonly used method of importing external files, that is the CSV format, which we just specify it as like a comma separated values. This CSV files, which is the simplest and most commonly used type of text format for collecting tabular data. So let's take for example a CSV called books.csv. Okay, so that contains of some books with other information such as authors, title, code, and of course the date of publications. Okay, so here it is the exact, if we just open in the text editor, we will be able to see this content. Okay, so as we can see from this, okay, the data is exactly as like some tabular format with rows and columns. And here the first row shows the heading of the each column. So this is the exact first rows, and which is separated from each other by commas. And then there are some few lines, each of which refers to the particular book. Okay, that is the exact data. Now, this type of file is easily imported. So by using the read_CSV format, we are just going to import it, and kindly have a note of it. This is what the exact book.csv, and when we just execute, kindly have a note of it. So this is what the data. So generally the individual values within the CSV files are separated by the comma character, And yeah, but this is not always true. Sometimes these types of files can also use for language conventions or some applications used to create them, that is other than separated commas. Yeah, let me just take one more example. Okay, here I just made this is book2.csv. Okay, so yeah, which is always a CSV format, but use a semicolon instead of a comma as a separated character. So you are able to view, that is, see here the same thing here. Here we are making use of a separated with a semicolon. So in this case, we will use another more generic functions that read underscore CSV, and which is perfectly suited to read and write any text file format. Okay, so here kindly just observe, dear friends. So the read table, here we just used the function which works the same way as read underscore CSV, but has a more general use as it is not limited to CSV files. So where data is comma delimited from each other, but extends to any separate data table from a character or a sequence of characters. So which can be defined by using an optional parameter. So here it is SCP, that is a separator. And yeah, we then use this method to import that books2.csv. Okay, now let me just make use of it. First of all, let me read it and make it assigned to a data frame, and let me just print the data frame here. So see here, dear friends. Yeah, as we can see, the result is particularly the same as to that of previous example. So these example files are very simple because they only contains a few lines. So in the most real cases, the table contained in the CSV files contain multiple rows. So before importing these files, it may sometimes be necessary to take a look inside them to see their internal structure and the type of values they contain. So in this regard, the CSV function, the read underscore CSV function has an optional n rows. So here it is the n rows parameter that allows us to define the number of rows to import. So for an example, if you want to look at the first two rows, here I have just specified only two. Yeah, here you can just make first two rows of the table contained in the CSV. We would assign the value 2 to the optional n row parameter, and yeah, if we want to take it towards that, so kindly have a note of it. Yeah, this one is red, and if I just want to save it to the see, kindly just to see if I just want to read this, and here it just shows it only the first two rows. So in this example, we looked at the content of the CSV file by reading only the first two lines, n rows is equal to 2. So we didn't pass the result to any data frame. So kindly just see here, we just done only pd.read underscore CSV. We didn't assign to any data frame. Okay, as our purpose was to have a look of the content. So in that manner, yeah, here we just making a look here. And dear friends, now that we have seen how to import the data in a CSV file, so let's see the opposite operations. That is, yeah, let's assume that we have carried out a series of operations on some data frame. We have processed, and once we have finished our work, we want to save the data in some way. So just as we load the data from textual file to convert them into a data frame. So it is possible to save our data frame on textual files. So there are various methods for this depending on to the file format for saving. For an example, the most common CSV file, yeah, of course, we are just going to make use it to_CSV. So the exact method allows us to save them. So yeah, here we are just going to call it as like books_saved.csv. Okay, and yeah, let me just save it and we execute it and see here. Yeah, it's done. We got here. So see here, dear friends. So as we can see, the content is perfectly identical to that of the books.csv. So hope you are able to see how this happenings. Okay, now, until now we saw how data frames originally refer to the spreadsheet as a format of a structured data, and in fact today a lot of data are available in this format, that is the Excel. Okay, so among which the best known is the Microsoft Excel, recognizable by the extension .xls and .xlsx. So given the importance of these files, the Pandas library has methods of reading and writing these kinds of files. So here, of course, we are just going to make use of read_Excel. So here I have just specified it, dear friends. Before making use of it, something, if we want to make use of this functionality, we have to get in with the installation of OpenPyXL. So of course we have to install it in our files. Okay, so of course we have installed this module, and dear friends, within an Excel file there are several spreadsheets. So as argument of the read Excel functions, you specify some both Excel file and the single spreadsheet. So here we can just make use of some spreadsheet which we can just make like this. So see here, this is what the exact sheet 1. Okay, and to import the data contained in an Excel spreadsheet, the source file is the first defined by creating an instance of Excel file. So let me just have that exact extensions of instance of this Excel file. So this exact Excel file class with the constructor of the same name using as argument the name of the Excel file that is to be read. Okay, so then we use the read_Excel. Okay, so this function to import the data into the specifying as arguments. So the Excel shows and the name of the spreadsheet from which to read the data here. So this is how we are just going to first of all locate it, and here by using the read Excel, it is just reading the data, and here when we just call the df, of course we are able to see it. So the result corresponding to that what is represented, this is the exact data frame. And similar, the same opposite operation is performed, having a data frame available on which we have performed some processing. We want to save it in the form of spreadsheet in an Excel file. Okay, for this we use the toExcel. So here we are just going to make it use the toExcel functions. But before using this method, it is necessary to first create an Excel writer. So that objects that books to an Excel file, which is already or to be generated. Okay, so here let me just make use of an Excel, and here we are just going to use newbooks.xls, and I'm just going to execute this. So kindly have a note of it. So after launching this command, the pandas will point to an XLS file that has been the name specified in the argument. Okay, so actually this path corresponds to the root of the workspace. So if it doesn't exist, it will create a new one. So the system is now waiting to be able to write data to this file. We can use the toExcel function to be specified directly on the data frame to be saved. So as argument, you specify the newly created Excel writer object and the name of the spreadsheet with the Excel file in which to insert the data. So here I have just specified sheet 1, and let me just see this. And at this point, to conclude, we need to save the Excel file. So for this operation, we still use the Excel writer object from which we can call the method save. Okay, so here we just calling 8. Okay, now let me open the exact. So here it is just a sheet 1, and yeah, I think you are able to see the sheet 1 here, and these are all the records. Okay, now let me just move on to the next one. So see here, dear friends, so far we have seen few different file format. So but one thing united them all, their format is textual, regardless of the structure of the data stored inside. So but with the Panda library, the possibilities for reading and writing files are not limited to this. In Python as well as in Pandas, it is also possible to save data in binary format. One of the simplest technique for doing this is to serialize data in binary format in a file by using pickle serialization. Actually, this is a technique widely used in Python. Also, in this case, it is possible to write and read data in binary format. Though actually here we are just going to make use it as like to pickle and yeah, from the read pickle format. Okay, we then load the data again. First of all, let me just load here as a data. So yeah, we are just going to read it. Let me just make it as the same data frame df. Okay, so from the books.csv, let me just see what is there in the data frame. Okay, we will obtain this. This is the exact data frame. Okay, now this time we will save the data of this test data frame in a binary format in a file with a generic extension .dat. Here I'm just making it as a .dat. Okay, but this is mandatory. Okay, we then use the toPickle function. Okay, so this is to a method, this is to generate a new binary file which will call the exact new books.dat. So let me just execute this. Okay, also in this case we will have the creation of a new file in our workspace. So here I have just specified the path where it has to be. Now after making it, yeah, now you can reload the data into it using the read pickle method, and here I have just specified pd.readPickle, and as the result we will also obtain a data frame perfectly identical to the original one obtained from the test.csv. And furthermore, the serialization of data in binary format is based on a particular or pre-established algorithm that will only be used for few times. When saving a data in binary format, the use of the data limited to certain environment and only for few durations must be considered. So since it is difficult to guarantee that the data conversion from format will remain unchanged over time. So even for such widespread method, pickle serialization be used. Dear friends, today we are going to discuss another interesting possibilities that the Pandas library gives us is to consider the world of the web as a direct source of data. And in fact, yeah, we are just going to use the, first of all, we are going to discuss on HTML pages. Yeah, let me just make use of read_HTML method by inserting a series of link to HTML pages. So these pages will be scanned looking for tables which will be automatically converted into data frames. Dear friends, this option truly opens the door to a world full of data and opportunities. The only flaw is that it will be necessary to know in advance what to look for. We then define a link of page to be scanned, such as, here I have just specified the Wikipedia page of Rome, the capital of Italy. On this page, we are particularly interested in the table containing the climatic data. So if we just write the URL of the page and pass it as an argument to the reader underscore HTML, so kindly have a note of it. Let me just do it. And yeah, this read underscore HTML function returns a list of data frames obtained by converting the data read from the HTML page. So let's see in our case how many data frames have been imported. So in this, yeah, we have to use the function len. That is len, which will tell us the number of elements in the list. Okay, let me just execute it. Yeah, we just got 49. Yeah, as we can see, the read underscore HTML method still extracted 49 data frames from the HTML page. It must always be borne in mind that in this type of data imported, we will always carry a lot of things that do not interest us also. Yeah, we will have to perform a data cleanup afterwards. So in fact, we got 49 data frames because in the HTML code of the web page we scanned, there are 49 tags in the HTML code and not always all of them used to contain data, because they are often also used to adjust the formatting of a page. So it is necessary to find a solution to avoid scanning the content of each of the 48 data frames that is obtained. Okay, now let me just have the exact header, which it just have that table we are interested in contains the word climatic data. So yeah, we are just pass these word to the optional match parameter inside the read underscore HTML function. So which will take care of importing only the tables that have these character strings inside them. So let me just have it. Yeah. So this time the data frame extracted from the HTML page is only one. So let's go and see its content. So we must consider that even if we only having one data frame, yeah, the value returned by the read underscore HTML function is always a list of data frame. So to access the first item, you will need to specify the index. Okay, so here we just specify the index and let I just execute it. We will get the exact data frame. And as we can see from the result, yeah, we have extracted the data on the table of exactly which we are interested. So we can then extract the data frame from the list and start working on it for our analysis. So here it is our data frame which we have extracted, and yeah, dear friend, we are just going to make use of it as dfs of 0. This is the index, and as there is a function of reading and extracting data from HTML page, as there is a method that converts the data frame defined by us into a HTML. So yeah, this method is previously to HTML. Okay, so we can create an example data frame by, yeah, let me just make an importing CSV file. That is can also be done. So here what we are just going to do is, yeah, we are going to pass the books.csv file, and we are going to convert that to HTML. So let's convert it to a HTML table, saving it as book.html. Okay, so yeah, let me just make this, and yeah, as a new HTML file will be created in the workspace. When we open it with any browsers, yeah, we will obtain the table, yeah, similar like this. This is the exact one to the one which is represented. Okay, dear friends, next we are just going to make the XML. So one file format containing the data that is often found on the web is XML. So this file format contains data in a highly hierarchical form and is recognizable by the use of tags. So the tags are recognizable for having a structure as like, yeah, tag name, and of course is going to start with the tag name starting and an end taggings also. And for working with XML, yeah, pandas provide some reading and writing methods for this particular file format. Python makes use of LXML library to handle XML, and so does the pandas. Okay, so you need to make sure you have installed this exact library in your environment. If you are executing this and if you just get any error as like, yeah, the model not found, yeah, of course you have to use pip install LXML. Okay, so yeah, once on executing, yeah, see here, dear friends, now that the base library as I have already installed, yeah, we can load the data present in any XML format. Okay, now we load the data present in this XML file using the function read underscore XML. Okay, yeah, of course we are just going to get an XML file that is from this is what the XML file. So yeah, in this manner we are just going to execute this, and yeah, we are going to make it as like a data frame. So let I execute the data frame. So see here, dear friends, we get the graphical representation of a data frame. And yeah, in the same way, it is possible to perform the opposite operation, that is to save any data frame in XML format to a file. So to do this, we will use the toXML file. Okay, so toXML method. So as argument of the method, we will pass the name of the XML file that will be created in the workspace. So for example, if we import data from the which we just made use of books.csv, okay, so file to create a data frame, then we convert the value containing the data to the specific type of the dates. So, and finally, yeah, we save it into the form of XML file, which we can just make it as like new books.xml. That is can also be done. So yeah, let me just execute this. And yeah, here what it happened, we saved it in the form of XML file that we have just created here in this. So yeah, if you want to see what is there in the content, so see here, this is the exact content we had. And dear friends, yeah, as a result, we will obtain a data frame here. Yeah, the exact XML files we have seen so far have one thing in common. So kindly have observed this. One thing in common, they have an internal tabular structure that is perfectly suited to being imported into the data frame. But in reality, there is no standard XML structure, and often the data inside could take more nested forms. So in this case, it is necessary to use the XSLT. Okay, XSLT technology to transform these XML into a tabular structured format. Okay, so we just exactly modified this, and yeah, modify the previous XML by inserting any further things. If we just need, for an example, the plan of library, but this time we will use a variable containing the text here. Okay, so let I just show that the exact text which we have just given here. And yeah, this is an alternative way that saves us from reading XML and working directly on the internal text in real time to carry our test. Okay, so kindly just let me know I execute this. And now in this case, we always use the read underscore XML function, but instead of the file, we will pass the variable containing the text in XML. So here we are just going to pass the XML here as an argument, and now we execute it. And see, kindly have a note of it. When we just run this command, we get that result as like, yeah, as we see in this case, we have used read underscore XML method, and yeah, was able to read the data of interest, and it is located in the deepest nesting level. So it is necessary to transform the data structure in XML into a tabular form that is well suited to our needs. And yeah, as we said earlier, yeah, we can take advantages of this XSLT technology, which through a series of command is able to transform the structure of XML file as we wish. Okay, so this exact XSLT is to consider a real programming language. Okay, so let me just convert the XML text into the structure more suited to this. So we are just going to give XSL code by saving it as text inside an XSL variable. So yeah, this XSL code is also based on the series of tags which corresponds to a series of commands that perform transformation operation. Okay, so let me just make that. And once it's done, yeah, at this point, the XSL text is passed to the optional style sheet parameter of the read underscore XML. Okay, so that function which will deal with both the transformation of the incoming XML text and subsequently the conversion of the data inside. That is, we are just going to make it into a data frame. Okay, yeah, here of course we can just make it as a data frame by using this style sheet, and let me just done. So as we can see, the result is now the same as to that of previous example, which we have already seen. Okay, now let me just move on to the next one, JSON. So another file format widely used for exchanging data, especially in the web world, is JavaScript object notation, shortly specified as JSON. So this format has proved so flexible that today it is practically the most used format for exchanging data via HTTP between browser and other applications. Okay, in Pandas to work with the data in the JSON format, it is necessary to have the fspec. I just specify here for your convenience. I just specify it in the command box. If you are not able to work with it, yeah, kindly just install by using pip install fsspec. Okay, so as I have already installed this, and of course I have that exact package. So once the package is installed, yeah, we can start with the example. Okay, so let's load the data from the books.csv. Okay, so that file back into a data frame. So here it is the exact data frame. So yeah, we will obtain the data frame as here it is shown. And now that we have the data frame, we can save it in the JSON format by saving it directly to JSON. Kindly just observe the extension as .json file. Okay, so let me just execute that, and if you check exactly the workspace, yeah, you will find a new books.json file. Yeah, if instead we can curious to see the data of our test data frame converted into the JSON format, yeah, we can also use the standard out as done here. So kindly have a note of it how we can just do it by using this standout method. So see here, this is what the exact file. So the structure is similar to the dictionary in Python. So but with a nested key value here it is. So see here, this is the exact dictionary that is nested into the one among the key. The value is that. Okay, like all the other file format, reading JSON file to get a direct data frame as a result is also possible and is done with the read underscore JSON method. Okay, so let's convert the newly generated JSON file into a data frame. Okay, so let me just execute this. Yeah, here we go. So again, yeah, we have used JSON file with the internal tabular structure, but in reality, the data in JSON has a tree structures that only in few cases is flattened to correspond to the tabular format. Okay, in reality, therefore, JSON data has a more complex structure with key value pair nested between them. Okay, yeah, dear friends, so if we write a JSON structure, okay, so here with different nesting level, so such as here we have just specified JSON data, and yeah, here it is specified as like company, site, production and product, and it is further nested. And yeah, dear friends, this is the exact JSON data. Now let we kindly just observe where we are here. So we can try to pass it as an argument to this read underscore JSON function to convert the data into the data frame. Okay, so let I just execute here. And yeah, we get a message, error message, because the JSON format of the data is not convertible. Kindly just observe, it is not convertible into a data frame as it is not in the tabular format, or it contains other features that do not conform to the standard JSON format. So fortunately, to overcome this problem, there is the one which we just specified, JSON underscore normalize function. So which allow you to convert any JSON format into a tabular one. So we can be converted, which can be converted into a data frame. So we then apply the JSON underscore normalization function to the data in the JSON format contained in that data. So JSON data variable. So let I execute it and kindly just observe what is the exact function here. Yeah, we have obtained a readable and convertible data frame. So even if does not yet have a tabular format, for best result you can add the JSON file key to specify how JSON file should be a tabulated. So this way we can make the JSON data passed as an argument perfectly tabular. And yeah, kindly observe here how we have just done. So this is how. So finally we obtain a tabular data frame here as it is in represented. Dear friends, today we are going to discuss on the topic working with time data. One of the best reasons to use pandas is its ability to recognize and manage time and data variables in the data values which we work on. So in this previous session, yeah, we saw some simple cases where the data was nothing more than the string labels and numerical values. And in reality, data can have many formats and dates and times are almost omnipresent. Dear friends, date, times are nothing more than the concepts of date and time with which we generally indicate a certain instance. So in the date on which we generally work, dates and times are reported as strings whose values have more or many different formats. Very often, depending on the country of origin or the order in which the years, the month and days of a data are reported. So furthermore, these value can be expressed by both numerically and literally. For an example, see here, dear friends, for the month of July, yeah, it can be specified as 07, or you can just specify it with a July. So the year could have 4-digit for convenience. Of course, it can also only report with the last 2 digits. So here if it is as 2023, yeah, you can just also specify the last 23. And additionally, these values are separated from each other by a wide variety of separators. So kindly have a note of it here. I have just specified the hyphen, and here it is a slash, and somewhere it is with comma, and here, yeah, of course it is a dictionary. Just a second, I just to show something related with colons also. So we see here, of course, here we just used as a colon. So, of course, there are so many, therefore, there are so many formats is there, and yeah, it is therefore clear that it is difficult to have tools that are able to praise these values correctly. Well, Panda is a very powerful library in this area, and it makes the work of data analysts a lot easier in recognizing and managing this data. So based on the already developed features of a datetime module of the standard library, Pandas have created a timestamp class that efficiently implements this concept of date and time. Okay, now let me write a series of example here, and yeah, that is going to recognizing and converting dates with this timestamp constructor. Okay, kindly have a note of it, dear friends. So here I have just specified the date, today's date, yeah, 02 July 2023. So how we are just going to get it as like a timestamp. So see here, of course, 2023 -07 -02. And yeah, here in this case, I have just specified July instead of the month 07. So now if we just get, yeah, the same thing we just received, and of course here it is as like a slash. So when on just making this functionality also, yeah, it can deduce from this example here I have just specified that regardless of the format type, the timestamp constructor is able to recognize that it is the same date. This constructor is also able to work on numeric formats and not only with the strings, in case each arguments will correspond in the order of years, months, days, and of course hours, minutes and seconds. So when I just execute this, so see here it is a separator with a comma. Yeah, when I just execute this, of course, we just get 000 in the set of hours, minutes and seconds. Yeah, in this case, it is also possible to avoid evaluating the time arguments that have zeros as a value. So we can just skip that, and of course, we can just provide, and when on just getting, yeah, the same time date. Dear friends, so far we have seen the constructor for generating these kinds of values. However, when importing data from external source, we will need much more to convert the already defined data than to build it. In this case, yeah, the Pandas library provides us with the toDateTime. So to_datetime function. So which accepts as an argument a series of objects which will then be converted into date time values. Okay, first of all, let me just create a dictionary here. So yeah, with the dictionary, we are just going to make use as like a data frame. So see here, of course, we have the year, month and days as the keys and corresponding elements, which is the value. So see here, this is the exact data frame. And this exact data, yeah, it can be converted to date time values by using toDateTime function. So see here, dear friends, we are just going to make use of this toDateTime function of this df, that is the data frame. We are just going to pass here, and the resultant what we just get is, of course, it is in the format of date and time. And yeah, as we can see, the function has converted a data frame into a series of date time 64-bit, that is the values. And next, another possibilities is, for an example, that for converting strings that describes a date and a time, but their format is too intelligible for the constructor. Yeah, in fact, the to_data_time functions allows you to add as an optional parameter the format in which you can specify the particular formatting. So kindly just observe here, particular formatting you can just specify here. Yeah, of course, you can just specify the percentage yes for seconds, indicating the seconds, and of course percentage y for year, percentage d for date and month. So many things are there, and thus be able to press. Also, by adding the optional error parameter, yeah, with the value rise, you will get an error message whenever the toDatetime function fails to place the string in a datetime 64-bit value. Okay, now let me just give here. So this is 2023 USA 3112. So 3112 and in the format of Y USA and yeah, D and M. So kindly just have a note of it, D and M. So here we just get it in the manner of, so it is exactly, so as we can see, it is possible to make the toDatetime function to recognize the single attribute of the data even in the case of strings that have particularly formats with additional text characters. So if we were to pass a series of strings in which one of them does not match the format, the parsing will fail and you will get an error message. Okay, so to avoid this, yeah, you can also specify the ignore option in the optional, that is as like here in error message, error parameter. Yeah, you can just also specify here as an ignore. Okay, let me just see it here. Yeah, in another example, it's available. Yeah, now first let's see again an example of data conversion here. Okay, and using the format codes. And yeah, we specified the series in which we have a series of strings to get it converted. And here the exact string, yeah, specified as like a USA. And when we just make use of this, kindly have a note of it. Yeah, also in this case, we use the toDatetime function, specifying a possible format that can interpret them all correctly. And here kindly have a note of it, but in reality this is not the case. Here kindly observe what we just get. After executing this, of course here we have just specified the error message as this, and after running this command we did not get any error message here. In fact, we expected a conversion error since the second line of this series here, yeah, that exact series contains a strings that does not match the format entered in the datetime format. Okay, and yeah, indeed all the lines have kept the type of source data, that is the object. And another feature linked to the concept of datetime is that this could be strictly linked to the geographical area of reference. That is specific to a time zone, that is some values of type timestamps also have a well-defined time zone inside them. So to avoid a reference time zone to the value of the datetime, add the optional parameter TZ. So here I have just specified TZ. Kindly have a note of it, to the constructor specifying the time zone using the specific string. Yeah, here we have specified the time zone here as UTC. Let I execute this, and of course, so as we can see, the time zone has been added to this timestamp, an object that a time zone indicator at the end of the time. And dear friends, of course, yeah, you can also make use of this one. Okay, so here when you just make use of in this function, so kindly have a note of it, we are just getting that Europe Stockholm time zone, which we have as like plus 000, which means exactly there is no longer than to the top UTC. If for an example, if you just specify anything related to that, so kindly have a note of it, it is plus 0200. So which it just means 2 hour longer than that of UTC. Okay, so the time zone can be also be added later after defining the variable. So for that, yeah, with the TZ underscore localized method. You can also add the time zone specifications passing the relative strings as an argument. So kindly have a note of it how we have just made it. So to localize here, I just made the time zone to be the America. So when we just execute this, so kindly have a note of it. Here it is specifying as like -03 -0. See, actually, we have seen that by sending a variable of type datetime to print, we obtain a string containing all the information such that date, time, and time zone. However, we often need to view and manage each of the individual item. So when we just make use of that, all this is possible. That is, of course, this numerous attributes that the time, that is datetime object has. So kindly have note this one how it happens. So it is providing -0400. Dear friends, actually with this, it will be possible to obtain only the partial information we need, such as, for an example, if the number of minutes, the year or the hour. So yeah, you can also have separated time for that. So if you want only the year, yeah, you can just go with the year. Or if you want only the month, only the date or hour, minutes, time, zone or second, whatever the thing. Yeah, you can also provide it separately. Yeah, seeing this system of attributes, one would be tempted to update one of them with another value. So, however, if you try to do this, yeah, you will get an error also. Yeah, just to show you a small example here. So, see here, if I just specify t is equal to hour is equal to 12. 12, it is in the sense, of course, you expect it to be a hour zone of 12. No, it is not in that manner. So kindly have a note of it. We just get an error. Surely there would be an error. So yeah, to modify or to update this exact datetime value, it will be necessary to use arithmetic method that will involve another concept, which we just said time delta. Okay, now let me just discuss on to that of time delta. So kindly just observe here, dear friends. So this time deltas, that is date times or previous times to which a data can be assigned, and another concept of this time on which pandas is based are the time deltas. So that are the measurements of time duration. That is the time interval between two previous instants, that is the date time. So this concept is also fundamental to working with times and dates in a data analysis. So pandas actually implement this concept through time delta, a class very similar to the one present in that datetime modules of the standard library. So this class also has its own constructor, so which we just specify time delta. Okay, and yeah, and the definition of the time interval can be very simple and initiative. Okay, for an example, if you wanted to define the duration of the time equivalent to one data, that is 1 day, yeah, it would be enough to write here as like 1 day. So 1 day duration, how it would just happens? Yeah, it is of course. So in this case, if we wanted to update a daytime value, for an example, by increasing its value by 1 hour, it would be enough to create a time delta value equivalent to an hour and add it to the daytime variable. So thus obtaining the updated value, it is therefore possible to perform arithmetic calculation. So with times using daytime and time delta together. So kindly have a note of it here. We are having timestamp and time data. So kindly observe how we just get it towards the output. So see here. So this is what, and yeah, proceeding to that, yeah, you can also be written more implicitly as like, so see here, this is our timestamp, and that timestamp, yeah, we are just going to add it with the time delta, okay, and that is with 1 hour incremental. And kindly observe what we just get. So from 10:30, it just ends at 11:30. Okay, so yeah, another more formal way of defining time interval is to enter the relative amount and unit of time. So for an example, there is another way. One second, dear friends, kindly observe here. Yeah, that another way to define a day and time is to enter 1 as a numerical value and use the optional unit parameter. So defining here as D. Okay, so define days as an unit of time. So if we just specify like this, kindly happen. So it is exactly 1 days. And yeah, using smaller time units such as seconds, the manufacturer will convert them to the larger time units, thus converting them to the corresponding values of days, hours, and minutes. So if I just specify here as like, yes, yeah, hope I think you are able to observe it. Yeah, so these are also more complex way to define time intervals, which are useful when you have multiple units together such as days, minutes, and hours. Of course you are able to see that. And yeah, I execute this, how we just get, yeah, we can see that the time delta defines the interval and are useful for the performing arithmetic calculation on timestamp object. So kindly just see here, I have just mentioned 3D, but here of course it just gives us the result as 3 days. And yeah, with this, yeah, we have seen that time delta defines time intervals and are useful for performing arithmetic calculation on timestamp objects. So this concept is even more explicit when we consider this example. So kindly observe, we have just specified 2023 Jan 01 and yeah, till 2023 March 13 or 14, whatever be. Okay, so kindly have a note of it. I'm just going to make the difference between these two, T2 and T1, and of course we want it in the date time format. And kindly observe, dear friends, to totally 71 days, and here it is the time. So this exact days and time difference, yeah, we are just getting it. And yeah, we can see from the result, even by making the difference between two time snap, an object of type time delta is automatically generated as a result, so without using the constructor. There is also a data conversion from function from time delta, which is we just say to time delta. So I just scroll down to have a look of it here, to time delta. And in this case, however, parsing is less flexible than to date time. So both are different. In fact, there is no optional format parameter and only the default formats that work with the constructor are recognized. Okay, now here I just create this series and let me just execute. Yeah, here we have the exact data with time delta 64-bit, and of course here we just get the exact extraction, and it's all about the objects. Now that we have seen with these two things, timestamp and time delta are in pandas, let's take a further step, seeing how it is possible to generate an array of this type of values in the simple and automatical way. So for this purpose, let me just have a small range, that is data underscore range functions, which allows us to create a predetermined number of values. So here, starting from a given data, that is given data is in the sense timestamp, and then defining an appropriate time intervals, generating a series of date time values or uniformly strategy. And of course, kindly have a note of it, dear friends. Here, it is possible to generate an array of 10 consecutive days starting from the specific day, defining as optional parameter. Kindly just have a note of it here. It is the one optional parameter D to define the duration of one day from one value to another and with periods. So the number of values to generate in this case, of course, we have the number of consecutive days as like 10. So kindly have a note of it that with the periods of 10, we are creating the data. And as we can see, dear friends, this date range function creates a date time index object containing 10 consecutive dates starting from 1st January 2023, and it just goes for July 2023, first day of July 2023, and so on. Here we just go. And another possibilities is to it is to different two timestamp, one starting and one ending as argument to the data range function. So here let me just have this exact range as we are having it in a difference manner. So here what I just specified 01/01/2023, and here it is 10/1/2023. Of course, we have a good enough of interval. And dear friends, if on the other hand we want a strategic time interval with different times, so we must explicitly specify it with the frequency parameters, or we could decide to subdivide these intervals by a certain number of parts. So in this case, we will use the optional parameter, that is the period. Okay, so now, for an example, we just go with, now we would like to create a timestamp array with the 5 minutes difference. So within the specified time limit, we can just specify here as 5t. This specific time limits, we will specify this 5t to indicate 5 minutes to the optional frequency parameter. Okay, now let I execute here. Here what we are just getting, might to divide this time intervals into 10 equal parts. So each delimited by a timestamp. In this case, 10 is assigned to the optional parameter period. So here again, I'm just going to give you this exact structure. So in all these cases, we have seen that exactly. Let me just execute and see here. So this is what I just scroll above, and kindly have a note of it. So in many cases, this kind of object is useful for building series or data frames. And for example, it is quite common to use these variables as indexed, both in the series and in the data frame. So here we just go with that exact example. So kindly have a note of it. What we are having, date range from 2023. Of course, it is January 1 morning 8 o'clock. And next, it is all about 1, 10 and 100. Of course, we can just create, we also be used to populate their values automatically. Okay, so let I execute this and towards the creation of series. And I think you both are able to see the exact both and its difference. Further, you can also make use of the subdivided with this interval by certain number of parts, as like we will use the optional parameter period again. So if we just make in the sense, we just get a timestamp also. So here, of course, this is what the exact time, and kindly have a note of it about the each and everything towards the difference. Okay, so let we just have this functionality in a different manner. So kindly observe, dear friends, if I just get it done, what we just get. Yeah, of course, we just get something related to the values, that is automatically it is generated. And using this, it is giving the values as index, both in the series and in the data frame. Okay, and when we just make use of this functionality to a time related or to a data, important data related. So see here, dear friends, so far we have seen how date time data is generated out of this thin air to fill series or data frames. But most of the time, this kind of data will be imported from external data source like files or database queries. So in the session, we saw that there are many functions that allows us to convert this externally read data into data frame, and we will therefore find in our newly generated data frame one or more columns that is containing date and time values. And let I just use this. Okay, of course, we saw this in our previous example, the case of a CSV file that containing a column with string that express the dates here, that is the publication date. And as we can see, the publication date column of the data frame contains days. Actually, during the import, that is read underscore CSV, method was not able to recognize these values by itself and simply entered them with a generic object. Okay, even though that you can just get it done it with the publication data. So kindly just observe what we just get here. Almost the same. Okay, so one of only things, we have just converted to timestamps, and you can also use the to date time function that we already saw earlier. And we assign the result to the same column to overwrite it or to a new one. So if I just specify like this publication date, and if we just go for to date time, kindly observe what we just get. As you can see that the exact data is now date times 64-bit, of course. Okay, so there in reality this read underscore CSV is a powerful function that has many optional parameters, including phrase dates, with which allow us to pass the column instead of the conversion passing in date times 64-bit. All this allows us to avoid carrying out this operation in two steps, and therefore without the need to use the to date time function to optional parameter presents dates. So under this you pass the list, that is even if it is a single element, you pass the list of the index of the column to be converted. So if I just make in the same way, so kindly observe, dear friends. So if I'm just passing only the exact third column, kindly observe what we just get towards to that of previous one. We can see the dates were read as such during the import of the data in the CSV file. So thus obtaining in the data frame already a column with date times 64 types value. Dear friends, in the previous session, we have discussed related to dates and time data. And here another type of data that we are dealing with is text data. Actually, it requires an appropriate knowledge of various manipulation techniques and some basic knowledge to be able to better manage them within the Pandas library and in data analysis in general. Dear friends, when importing text data from an external file or database, yeah, it is generally classified as object data type. So let me just include here and kindly have a note of it. Yeah, this is the exact data frame. And let's see the exact details of a value of the column that contains textual data. So see, for the exact ID data, of course, there is an alpha here. It is specified. And yeah, kindly observe the data type is object. And when moving on to the title, kindly observe, yeah, the data type is object. And yeah, to the same here, to the author, here too, the data type is object. So as we can see, all these three columns containing the data of type text have been imported into the data frame as values of type object. You can always make sure that you can import them as string by adding the optional dtype parameter inside the read_CSV function. So see here, yeah, we then set this parameter on the type of data string. So kindly observe. So this is the exact parameter. Yeah, of course, one among the parameter in read_CSV, and here I have just specified it as string. Now let I execute this. Okay, in this case, however, all the columns, including those of other type, yeah, of course, this publication date, it is in a date type, okay, yeah, other than this text data will be considered to be the string type. So kindly just to see, this publication now aids us like string type. So then at this point, the single column which is converted with the correct type of data. How come this can be? Yeah, of course, as it is the only thing which we want to make it towards the daytime. Yeah, you can just convert it to daytime. So yeah, this can be possible. So which we are just making it towards the date time conversion. Or you can also import everything as an object and then promptly convert each column with its date type. So for an example, to convert the value of a single column, you can use the yes type, which we just say yes as type method. So passing the single type of data as an argument. So yeah, you can also specify here as like a title. You can just make use of it. This is as like a string. Separate thing, you can just make it. But why exactly we want to convert all type of to string type? Once you have converted a textual value into a data type string, you can take advantages of the many methods provided by the Python for handling strings. So this then provides us with a powerful tool for manipulating and managing textual data. And kindly just observe, dear friends, there are so many methods is there correcting the characters of the string. So the simplest case is that of wanting to correct the format of a text deciding. So for an example, to convert the character from lowercase to uppercase or uppercase to lowercase, or these are the few methods that deal with this. So for an example, if you want to put all the letters in the uppercase within a column, yeah, you can just make use of it. So here I have just specified only the title to be the uppercase. So I have just specified only that column alone. So see here, yeah, everything whichever is specified, yeah, it is there as like uppercase. Yeah, whereas if we want to use all the lowercase character, yeah, we will use towards the low, so lower. Yeah, one of the most used method in correcting imported text data is strip. So yeah, of course, we are just going to deal with a small example. So kindly have a note of it, dear friend. Often when importing columns of text, you have problem with empty space. Some strings starting with blanks or at the end, or have some blanks that increases their length unnecessarily. So well, these can be removed by some method. So one among the thing which we are just going to deal with the strip method. Okay, so let we add a column here. Okay, so I'm just going to add a column comment to this data frame which we have already specified. So see here, this is the exact column that we have included. And yeah, from this, as we can see, the last column has comment that has some excess white space. And yeah, here in this, before there is a space is there, after there is a space is there, and of course for this also there is before there is some space is there, and here also some space is available. Okay, so yeah, we are able to see some space both in beginning at the end of the text. So therefore, a need to correct these values. So first, let's see the length of the various string, including this unnecessary space also, okay, by using the function len. Okay, so here it is that. So let me just make use of this method. And these values will help us better check whether the space have been removed correctly or not. So for that, just want to have a note of it. So kindly just to see here, the first one command here, it has 24. And next one, the second data, we are having 22. And next one, it is all about 18. Okay, so now I am just going to make use of the strip method. Okay, so let me then apply the strip method to remove unnecessary space both at the beginning and at the end. Okay, see, actually here it just remove leading and trailing white space only. So yeah, we have just done now. So kindly just to see, we can check with the length again. I just go above to lightly scroll above. So kindly just to see, compare that before using the strip method and after using it. So kindly see here we are having 18, and of course we just reduced it towards 15. And the first one we have 2 at in the front. Okay, so yeah, once again I just scroll towards it. So here we have 2 space before and 2 space after it's that. So of course we just had 4 unnecessary space, so that has been reduced. Okay, so as we can see from the result, and by observing the reduced string length after using the strip method, all unnecessary spaces at the beginning and the end of the strings have been removed. This is not true for unless space that divide words within a string. So kindly you just observe here, interesting, and there is some space between that. In fact, you can just see which keeps here as 3 empty spaces between the 2 words. The strip method does not affect the inside of a string in the slightest, but only control the beginning and the end. So if we have such needs, yeah, we can use the replace method. Yeah, let me just make use of this. And of course, this replace method allows us to replace one or more characters with other. So in this case, we can replace 2 consecutive spaces with no characters. Or it is as if we are telling Python to remove all cases where there are 2 consecutive spaces. That can also be done. So here, kindly just to see, we are going to replace the 2 consecutive spaces is there. I'm just going to replace it with no characters. Nothing is there. Okay. So let I just execute it and check with the data frame. Okay, so from the result obtained, what we can just see, yeah, we see that the space between the words here, okay, between the words have also been corrected. And dear friends, actually the replace method in its more conventional use, therefore serves to replace one or more characters with others. It can be used. For an example, you can just use it to remove or replace unwanted separator characters also. Okay, so first let me just call the whole data frame here, and I just want to make use of this. Okay, so kindly just to see here, in this data frame, we may want to put some commas to separate the name and surname of the author of the book. So here, the first name and to the surname, if you want to replace it, yeah, you can just make use of it. So how I'm just going to make it? So this exact author, as with the string format, I'm just going to make use of the replace. Wherever there is a space, that is space in between these two strings, I'm just going to replace it with a comma. Okay, so once after making that, Now let we execute only the author type. So kindly just to see. Yeah, I think you are able to observe that is one word with another we have just replaced within a text. Yeah, a comma has been included. Okay, fine. And next, of course, you can also make use of something replace. Yeah, here wherever there is a word book, okay, in the command. So see here one book is there. If you want to make that changes in the values also, yeah, you can just change it towards replace. So see here, this exact book has been replaced to novel. This is possible. Yeah. Good. Okay. Now next, let me just have some methods for stripping strings. And yeah, another important string processing method widely used in pandas is split. Of course, we have already discussed a slide related with the split in the previous session as like Python functionalities. Okay, getting some inputs from the user under input method. Okay, I think we have just used the split method. Okay, fine. Anyhow, so exactly we are going to detailedly discuss here. This exact method analyzes the words present in string. So by default, it includes many separator characters such as space and commas, anything. So and separates them from each other, obtaining a list of smaller strings, each corresponding to a single word. Okay, so here let we just make this splitting of only the title. Okay, so kindly just observe what it has. So each and every word has been included, that is the separated it with a separator. Okay, and this was being as like an element in a list. Okay, if on the other hand, the words are separated by separator character, such as the comma, it is possible to specify it as an argument of the method. So if you want to make that, so here of course we have included an author, a comma inside the author. Yeah, that is also can be done. So purposely I have just done that. Okay, now I want to split that here and kindly just see. John is the first name and of course this is the surname. Okay, so here you can just make use of that functionality. And when on just making this, yeah, as the result, the method returns the string in the form of the list of the word enclosed in a square bracket. And a much more useful format for those who work with pandas is to obtain a data frame formed by the words divided between them and placed in a column. So to obtain this format, the optional expand parameter is added, and here of course, here I have just included that parameter expand and specified it as true, and kindly just to see how it happens. Yeah, you can also expand it and we can see from the result what we just got in this data frame. So, but the most common operation practiced in the analysis of textual data is to obtain in our data frame the addition of new columns with the values of individual words. For an example, we want to create two new columns in which we have the name and the surname of the authors of the book separately. Yeah, thus can be done. So kindly just to see here, if I just want to make use of that, so author name and author surname, now I am just making it. So I am here giving the new column name as name and surname, that is author name, author surname, and yeah, here I am just excluding that author. Of course, it is just going to make as a redundant. Okay, so I am just deleting that exact particular column, and when on just viewing the resultant data frame, kindly just to see, observe it. And another common operations with the textual data is the reverse to the one just performed. Here we have just splitted. Yeah, of course you can also concatenate it. So instead of dividing the strings of one column into multiple column, we want to do the opposite operation. Yeah, we want to merge the string of several columns into one. There is no need to use any string method to do this, but it is sufficient to use the arithmetic operator sum to concatenation the string value of an individual column together. You can also add character strings between the operator if you want to add some separator characters. And kindly just observe in our example what we have just done. Yeah, we want to introduce a space in between. Okay, we want to introduce a space in between, and then we add both the strings. Both the strings here as like author name and author surname. Of course, we are just going to give a new column author. Now kindly just observe. Of course, what we have just done, we have restored the original situation, performing the reverse operations to the previous one. Now, yeah, let me just move on to the next one. Yeah, however, it is possible to do the same operation using a method for string that allows their concatenation. Yeah, so we have one more method which we just say cat. Okay, so it is possible to merge the textual value of two columns of the data frame and possibly add a separator character with the optional parameter. So here I have just specified the separator, and yeah, it just do the same thing. So what we have done, of course, this is what. Okay, so yeah, we can delete now by using the surname and name, the first name and surname, and now we just got our original data back to the form. So here the result are identical, which we have just seen towards the previous one. So kindly just observe what we have done towards it. ID, title, author, publication date, and command here, the same here. Okay, now we are just going to step in more complex example. Kindly just observe, dear friends, a more complex example than the previous one is to separate alphanumeric from numeric character in a column. So, which very often are joined together without any separator characters. That is what the main here. So, in this case, the replace method comes to our aid once again. So, which allows us to extract only the numeric characters from a column. So, this is because of the regular expression, that is the exact which we are going to make it regex. So, this is the exact expression passed as an argument. So, if we want to eliminate all alphanumeric character from our column, so we have to use, of course, this is what alpha numeric data, that is A to Z and plus. So let me just make use of it, and of course if we want to make it in the ID, okay, so we are just going to apply it only towards the ID data, and yeah, new ID 1 has been created now. So kindly observe here what we have got. So yeah, 001276A, this is what the exact data, and we are just replacing this alpha, that is A, as like null character. Okay, no character we have just passed, just removing that. Of course, yeah, if we want to extract only the alphanumeric part, yeah, we will use the same method, but this time passing the expression as like 00, that is only the numeric passing towards it, that is the digit plus. The digit plus, yeah, 0 to 9 plus, if we just use like that. And of course, see here, previously we have just named it, the resultant, as ID1. Now let me just make it here as ID2. Okay, and yeah, of course, the ID data now it has been processed towards ID1 and ID2. And so let me just delete the ID and see what we have. So this is what the exact ID1 part, only with the numeric, and the one which we have the alpha part, that we have extracted a separated column. Of course, we have obtained two new columns in which we have separated the numeric character and the alpha numeric ones. Okay, so as alternative method, but which gives similar result is with an extract, that is can also be done. So here kindly just observe the extract method. So this method also works through that regular expressions only, okay, and extracts from a column. So the character that corresponds to the condition imposed by the regular expression, how it just is shown. So kindly observe here. So the same thing, if I just want to make it towards the character here, okay, so observe only the numerical values, and the same thing with alpha. So kindly see here, A, B, E. So the same can be done, extract the alpha part from the column, and it is sufficient to change the regular expressions to extract only the alphanumeric characters. So now that we have separated the alphanumeric from the numeric characters, so let me just delete the original column here, ID. Okay, so let me just make it, and the resultant of this operation. So here we just get 8. Now, if we want to add it, if we want to add some character to the rows of a column, yeah, of course, we are just going to use this cat method. Okay, so actually in the previous example, we saw how the cat method allowed us to concatenate the strings of 2 columns together to form a new one. Of course, you able to replace it. Just I scroll above. What we have just done is, of course, we have combined it with the author. Okay, now yeah, we are just going to use this cat to add one or more characters to the end of each line in a column. For an example, so let's add an acronym of a nation to one of the columns. So we generated. So here we have just used USA, ITA, and France of FRA. Okay, so let me just concatenate it with the separator, and I just want to include that in the ID2. So what is that ID2? Of course, here we are having A, B, E, and of course three values is there. Okay, so it going to add this of the nation of one of the column which we have already generated. So kindly just observe. I'm just going to execute it. So this is, however, suppose the insertion of a list or an external series having the same number of rows as our data frame. So if on the other hand, if we want to add the same sequence of characters for the entire column, yeah, we can create a temporary column in the data frame, all with the same values, and then it is concatenated to the desired column. That is also, it is possible. So kindly just to see how this happens is, of course, you can just make use of that USA as a separate thing in an as like a temporary, and you can pass the temporary here and then making it deletion. So yeah, you just see the operation, everything or the same thing, same value. That is can also be possible. And if you just want to see the final data frame, here we go it with like this. So as you can see, these methods are malleable, and to carry out the same operation, you can find different possible solution. Okay, now let me just go with another method, dear friends, actually recognition method. And yeah, dear friends, actually there are methods of strings that allow you to know if within a string we have only alphanumeric or only numeric characters. So for an example, we previously separated the ID column into 2 columns, one alphanumeric and one is a numeric character. So often data frames have many rows, and it is not possible to ascertain whether the previous operations was successful on all rows. So it could only be also be that one of the rows of the column contained an incorrect or non-uniform code, and that therefore the regular expression was not sufficient to completely separate the alphanumeric characters from the numeric ones. So to make sure of this, you can use the exact command isDigit. So this exact method which traces each row of a column makes sure it contains only numerical characters or not. So is digit, yeah, if we just pass it towards the in our data frame, kindly just observe. So here, yeah, it is there in this ID. Of course, we are having true, and it is also a true, and here also a true. So the same goes for the opposite. That is, if we want to make sure that each row of a column contains only alphanumeric. So here also, yeah, of course, we can just make it as like alphanumeric characters. You can use is alphanumeric. So of course, when we just pass it towards that, yeah, no, everything here in ID1, ID2. So see here in ID2, everything or the exact alphanumeric. So this is how, dear friends, and of course you can also have one more functionality, that is searching method. So searching method in strings. There are also many other methods for strings that are capable of performing recursive searches within a textual data. So for an example, you could check for the presence of a word within each line with the find method. Okay, so yeah, if we want to verify the presence of the word the within the title of the book in our data frame. So I just want to find the exact word, and kindly just to see here from the result, a series of numbers is obtained. So whose value corresponding to the position of the word the. So within each row of the column. So if it is present, then we just get a positive integer is obtained, and if it is not present, the value is -1 is obtained. And if on the other hand, our search is essentially focused on knowing whether the word is present or not. Yeah, within that column also we can just specify. So kindly just observe, if we want to know whether it is present or not, that is greater than -1. If it's so, and the same thing in title. So kindly just to see what we just get. Yeah. So as you can see from the preceding example, the find method returns positive value if it has found the search word, and the number will correspond to the position of the word and within the line text. And yeah, to obtain a Boolean series instead, yeah, it is sufficient to check if the returned value are greater than 0. And dear friends, as we have seen, Pandas does not just manipulate data, it connects you to the real world data ecosystem. From CSVs and Excel files to JSON APIs, from timestamped logs to string heavy dataset. Pandas helps you bridge the messy, scattered reality of raw data with a structured clarity that AI models demand. In the context of Gen AI, these capabilities are game-changing. Yes, of course, loading prompts, that is completion paths from CSVs and JSON files to fine-tune LLMs. Importing image captions or metadata from Excel sheets for multimodal datasets. Scrapping HTML content from the web to expand your training corpus. Aligning chat logs with timestamps for time sensitivity generative system. Next, cleaning and standardizing string data so embedding and tokenizing work smoothly. Difference exporting cleaned, merged and structured datasets back into efficient formats ready for training pipelines. And here the truth is, yes, very simple. Generative AI doesn't live in isolation. It thrives when raw, messy, real world data is transformed into clean, structured and accessible formats. Pandas gives us that power to not just work with data, but to make it AI ready. So as you move forward, remember dear friends, the path to powerful generative AI models always begin with mastering art of handling real world datasets. And dear friends, if you found this session helpful, don't forget to like, share and subscribe to stay tuned for the next session in generative AI journey. And hit the bell icon so you never miss a chance, and see you in the next session. Happy learning.